And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we're going to talk about the Cavs winning the playoff series against the Orlando Magic in 7 games. But before I actually talk about that, I do want to bring up a quote that literally just popped up on my feed. Anthony Edwards literally just said this like 12 minutes ago. He was asked a question on the fans comparing him to Michael Jordan. Literally exactly what I was doing. And he said, quote, "I want it to stop. He's the greatest of all time. I can't be compared to him." And obviously, a lot of respect is being paid to a player as good as Michael Jordan. But what I really find funny is how before, Kevin Durant was actually Anthony Edwards' GOAT. He said it on an interview. He thought Kevin Durant was the greatest basketball player of all time because he was unguardable. Now, after he swept him in a postseason, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. I find it a little bit funny, and I don't know. I thought it was funny, and it's and kind of ironic considering how I was literally just talking about Anthony Edwards, and boom, here comes a quote from him. But regardless, wait a minute. Before I begin with the Cavs series, I have more breaking news. You're gonna have to hold on the Cavs news. Hold on. So, okay, yep, the audio, please stop. Thank you. So, the Clippers have allegedly made multiple contract offers to Paul George below the max, which Paul George will not accept. Los Angeles wants to keep George, but he appears heading towards unrestricted free agency this summer. And this is via Evan Sidre. And obviously, we sort of knew that this was going to be a problem going into free agency for Paul George and the Clippers as an organization. Especially, what really doesn't help Paul George's case in getting a max from the Clippers is the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder are farther into the playoffs now than Paul George. That does not help Paul George's case in getting a max whatsoever, because if you guys don't remember this trade, the Clippers dropped they gave OKC everything for Paul George. Like everything. I have to look at the actual trade details in order to accurately tell everyone what the picks were, because there were so many picks and so many swaps and so many players in this trade that it's so difficult to remember just exactly how many picks they have. So excuse me. So for the trade for the Paul George trade, the Clippers received Paul George in exchange for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, Miami Heat's unprotected first-round pick, which ended up being Trey Mann, the Clippers' unprotected first-round pick, which ended up being Jalen Williams, the right to a 2023 first-round swap with the Clippers, not conveyed, Clippers 2024 unprotected first rounder, Heat's 2025 protected first rounder for 1 through 14, unprotected for 2026, and right to 2025 first round swap with Clippers, as well as the Clippers 2026 unprotected first rounder. They practically sold their soul for Paul George in this trade. All of those assets that I just mentioned for one player, and then all of those assets end up making it farther than that one player in the season. And it's not like Paul George is getting any younger either. So it's really not looking good for Paul George and getting that max, as like, especially like given the performance in the postseason. Because again, the performances in the postseason that he's had are also not a very good argument to his case of wanting the max. And it's like, it's really just bad luck for Paul George. But I'm sure the Sixers will gladly take him, and he can do the exact same thing that he does on the Clippers as he does on the Sixers. I think that's the team that's probably going to pick him up. But regardless, let's actually go into this Cavs series against the Orlando Magic, because like I kept holding it off, but again, like I feel like that was like pretty solid information to know. So excuse me. Right after my show on Friday, not really right after, but after my show on Friday, the Cavs ended up playing the Orlando Magic in Orlando. And Orlando ended up winning 103-96, and they were able to force a Game 7. Paolo Banchero ended the game with 27 points, 8 rebounds. Franz Wagner ended the game with 26 points. Jalen Suggs ended with 22. And let's see, that was basically it in terms of scoring for the Orlando Magic. And they didn't really need that much scoring, because outside of Donovan Mitchell, there was no other real star player for the Cavs that provided enough scoring for this team. Like, let me just go ahead and do some math real quick and sort of figure this out. But yes, in Donovan Mitchell, he ended the game with 50 points. 50 points he ended the game. The rest of the team ended with 46. So he outscored his own team, and that's the reason why they lost. Simply put, that was the reason why the Cavs lost Game 6. Because how do you let one player outscore your whole team? How do you let one player on your team outscore the rest of the players on the 14-man roster? Well, technically, with the people coming off the bench, it would be a 9-man option at this point, really, since there's only a few people coming off the bench. But you understand the idea. And so 50 points, 22 for 36 from the field. Darius Garland was the only other player to score more than 20 points, and he had 21, shot 10 for 17 from the field. Max Strus ended the game with 10 points, and that was it for all of the scorers in double digits. The entire team shot very poorly. It was literally just Donovan Mitchell doing Donovan Mitchell things and trying to keep the team alive, but unfortunately that didn't work, and they were forced to play in a Game 7. Luckily, they were able to play that Game 7 at home. And lucky for them, they were able to come out winning 106-94 against the Orlando Magic. This is the first playoff series that the Cleveland Cavaliers have won without LeBron James since 1993. That is a very, very long time without playoff success, without your king to guide them. And obviously, it doesn't feel like a long time because the Cavs have been good for a long time because of LeBron. And, well, not really. I mean, yeah, I guess 11 years is a long time. And they have, literally, they have their moments where it's like every time, when LeBron left, the team would get worse. But now they finally have a great team without LeBron James. Now, Paolo Banchero in this elimination game, he ended with 38 and 16. Excuse me. And that's obviously very, very, very impressive coming in from Paolo Banchero in an elimination game. And he wasn't getting any kind of attention from the media for this. And I really think it's unfair because he was a very important and vital asset for this team. And this Orlando Magic team has shown that they are competent to compete in the postseason. They just took the Cavs to 7 games. What's more showing competence than that. I mean, the Cavs, they're still the middle tier of the Eastern Conference. I'm not saying that they're a great team, they're great, but they are a very solid team. And I mean, Paolo Banchero dropping 38 and 16. What more can you really want from him in an elimination game? It was really unfortunate, however, how the rest of his team couldn't really follow suit. Jalen Suggs ended the game 2 for 13 from the field. Wendell Carter Jr. ended the game 5 of 10 for 13 points. Franz Wagner was 1 for 15 with 6 points, which is obviously the biggest reason why the Orlando Magic ended up losing. By far, the biggest reason why they ended up losing, because he only made 1 shot in the entire game. And it really, if you're the Magic, it really, it really stings, because you had the opportunity to win it. You really had that opportunity, and it just dropped it. Completely dropped the opportunity. Now, Donovan Mitchell, he ended the game with 39 points. I mean, what else could you expect from Donovan in an elimination game? And the only other player that had, actually, I lied. The only other player that had relatively good scoring, I should say, is Karis LeVert, who ended with 15 points. Then Evan Mobley ended with 11 and 16. Max Strus ended with 13. And Darius Garland ended with 12 on 3 for 13 from the field, which is honestly very concerning, considering that is your second option, and that's how he's playing in an elimination game at home. That's not really something I think the Cavs should look forward to, and that's not something I think the Cavs should just glance over, if that makes sense. But regardless, going back to the rest of the games that are... Actually, no, not the rest of the games that are going on. What am I talking about? Excuse me. But going back to the game that I was talking about with the Cavs and the Orlando Magic and their series, I'm just looking at the box scores right now. It's really it was a close series. This series was really, really close. And I'm very surprised that it didn't get much media coverage, because this was the only first round that ended up going to 7 games. And we barely get any media coverage of such a great fight, such a great battle between these two teams. I think that's very, very unfair, especially for Paolo Banchero, who's literally just undermined by the entirety of the media. Just completely undermined by the entirety of the media. Now, let me just go ahead and look at my notes, because I did have some notes for the final game on the awards that I give out to, players and their playoff success. Let's see. Let me just go right ahead and open up my notes. All right, so for the awards in this series, obviously the series MVP is Donovan Mitchell, no questions about it. He averaged 28, 5, and 4 on 46, 25, 82 shooting splits. So obviously, they're not relatively efficient. However, there was really nobody else on the Cavs team that is suitable to get the series MVP, so it has to go to Donovan. The finals, LeBron, and actually, what's really intriguing about Donovan Mitchell's numbers is that the team plays a lot better with, actually, wait, no, that's untrue. The team plays only slightly better with Donovan Mitchell on the court, and even then, his on-court numbers are still minus 4.9, and obviously, that's not really ideal. Paolo Banchero, he's the finals LeBron. He ended the game, so, best player on the losing team. He ended the game with, he ended the series averaging 27, 8, and 4 with 1 steal on 46, 40, 76 shooting splits and 55.4% true shooting. The sixth man of the series, I got to give it to Markelle. I mean, he averaged 6, 2, and 1 on 59, 0, and 56 shooting splits. And his on-court net is plus 17.3. So I feel like that big number is the difference maker. Now, unfortunately, now we move on to the bad award, which is the most disappointing player in the series, and that was Cole Anthony. For some reason, Cole Anthony, he only averaged 5 points, 2 rebounds on 32, 15, and 89 shooting splits. Now that is very, very bad, very unfortunate, but again, like, you know, it's the most he was the most disappointing player in that series, and I really don't like saying that like someone is disappointing, but I mean, you can't really argue those numbers. So the man of the hour, that was Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, he ended the game with 39, I believe it was, in Game 7, and he also ended with 50 in Game 6. Both of those were elimination games, and I don't think you can, like, there's really no other man of the hour and no man that met the moment other than Donovan in that series. And then there's the other disappointing player of the series, which is Franz Wagner. Wasn't really disappointing, like, overall, but he was disappointing in the very last game where, 1 for 15 from the field. But, excuse me, that's all I have for this third segment. So with that, we are out of time, and I'm going to go blow my nose again after the during this short break. Jesus, if only I could English. And then in the fourth segment, we're going to talk about all the playoff teams left in the NBA and just how young they are, and just how many young teams are in the playoffs right now. I just want to briefly talk about that because I think it's very interesting. So I'll be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.